Discovered how a billionaire's amazing act of kindness transformed a little girl's plea into hope. Emily sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, the taste of dread gnawing at her insides. Her father's sudden job loss felt like the ground had dropped from beneath her feet, leaving nothing but a cavern of anxiety. Her family, once a picture of happiness and stability, was now wrapped in silence, each member too fearful to voice their worries. When bills began to pile up, the gnawing sense of despair only deepened. She buried her head in her pillow, wrestling with the voice that insisted they needed help. But accepting charity felt like a betrayal of everything they stood for. Independence and hard work. It was a cold Tuesday morning when Emily stared at the empty refrigerator, thoughts racing. She had always been the resourceful one, finding ways to save as her father fixed broken appliances or her mother balanced delicate budgets. Yet no amount of creativity could ease their situation. The weight of her family's struggle crushed her spirit, and the realization that they might have to choose between groceries and her medication filled her with an unease she couldn't shake off. A sense of desperation began to seep into her heart like a slow poison. Should she reach out for help? The very thought made her stomach churn. Would it be a sign of failure? Or an act of brave determination? Emily thought of her mother's resolute face, uttering, "Pride is all we have left." But in her young mind, she also envisioned the softness in her mother's eyes. What if that pride was suffocating them? As she wrestled with these emotions, her thoughts clashed violently. She had to do something, anything, to take control of the spiraling chaos that enveloped them. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days passed, adding an unbearable weight to Emily's thoughts. Each knock on the door sent shivers down her spine, as if she were expecting it to be a bill collector instead of a friendly neighbor. The thought of speaking live on air sharing her family's struggles filled her with both dread and a flicker of hope. What if she could touch someone's heart? As anxiety coiled tighter within her, the decision crystallized: she would tell her story, no matter the fear. That evening, as she sat in front of the small local news camera, the warmth of the studio lights felt like both a blessing and a curse. Emily's voice shook, but she pushed through, channeling the depth of her emotions into each word. Her heart thudded against her ribs as she fought back tears, hoping to connect, to spark a change. Little did she know, her heartfelt plea would pull her into a web woven with unexpected threads of kindness, pride, and painful secrets yet to be unveiled. As she spoke, the glimmer of hope intertwined with the harsh reality of their situation, leaving her to wonder if anyone would hear her call. Would her tears become the watershed that turned their tide, or simply a moment lost in time? The days that followed Emily's courageous broadcast filled her life with an unsettling mixture of hope and anxiety. The local news segment had garnered attention far beyond her expectations. Strangers reached out on social media platforms, sending words of encouragement and sharing their own stories of hardship. Some even offered help. Yet, the prospect of accepting these gestures made her pulse race with discomfort. Emily scrolled through the endless feed of supportive comments and messages, each one tugging at her conscience. Gratitude danced around her like a fleeting whisper, but her pride beckoned her to close the app and retreat into the safety of her room. Could she truly accept help? Images of her parents echoed within her, and the weight of their struggle clawed at her resolve. Her mother, a former community leader, had always taught her that vulnerability was weakness, that asking for assistance was a capitulation of their core values. With every encouraging word she read, Emily felt as if the life raft she had thrown out was fraying at its edges. What worried her most was that accepting help might shatter the very foundation of her family's dignity. Determined to reclaim her sense of agency, Emily devised a plan. Instead of waiting for assistance as a passive recipient, she would become proactive. As she flicked through tutorials online, a spark ignited within her. She decided to start a small handmade crafts business. If she could sell her creations, perhaps she could contribute financially without sacrificing her family's pride. Hours melted into days as she found refuge in her creative abilities. The workshop in her garage transformed into a whirlwind of colors and textures. She made bracelets, painted small canvases, and crafted intricate notes of kindness to accompany each piece. There was something empowering about it, something that filled her with a sense of purpose. As the days turned into nights, she gradually lost track of time, consumed by the joy of creation that momentarily overshadowed her worries, but the moment of excitement was often sliced through by pangs of doubt. What if no one wanted her crafts? What if the effort proved futile, and her family remained in their desperate financial circumstances? The thought haunted her, echoing relentlessly in her mind. Each time she fought against the tide of uncertainty, she reminded herself of the mission: raising enough money to contribute to their household, to ease the burden in her mother's eyes even if just a bit. She set up an account on an online marketplace and posted pictures of her work, the screen mirroring her trepidation. As she hovered over the publish button, her finger trembled. Part of her longed to retreat, but another acknowledged a steady stream of determination washing over her. It was time to confront her fears head-on. Moments later, the notifications began to flood in. With each like and share, her heart raced, a mixture of exhilaration and anxiety threatening to overwhelm her senses. But the thrill of creating and potentially selling her crafts pushed her forward. With newfound momentum, Emily began to concept and design new items each day. Word of mouth spread through her small neighborhood like wildfire, and soon she established friendships with other teenage entrepreneurs, sharing tips and inspiration. It was exhilarating, empowering, but also daunting in unexpected ways. As her small business began to flourish, the pressure mounted to maintain the pace. The evening she received a message from a local boutique interested in featuring her crafts sent ripples through her thoughts. The excitement quickly morphed into unease. Would this be her opportunity to shine, or would it be another avenue for public scrutiny and pressure? Emily's pulse quickened as she deliberated her next move. The call to action tugged at her fiercely, awakening a distinct part of her she hadn't fully explored. She had the chance to reveal her true self and showcase her talent. One small moment could alter the path ahead. But the stakes were high, forcing her to question yet again: could she embrace this opportunity without compromising what her family had worked so hard to uphold? As she stood at the edge of this new personal and professional frontier, a lingering thought crept into her mind: was she truly ready to face what lay ahead? The world was waiting, and it was time for her to decide how boldly she was willing to step into the light. Emily stared at the message from the boutique, a mix of excitement and trepidation coiling tightly in her stomach. This could be the turning point she had longed for, but it was also a moment where visibility clashed with her ingrained fear of failure. The potential to share her crafts in a venue connecting her with a wider audience felt intoxicating, yet daunting. As she paced in her garage-turned-workshop, her fingers brushed over the delicate materials scattered across the table. Each item was a reflection of her soul, a piece of her journey encapsulated in colors and textures. They represented months of effort and a deep-rooted desire to break free from the cycle of worry that had enveloped her family. She sank into the small chair beside her table, letting the gravity of the decision wash over her. Accepting the boutique's offer meant putting herself out there, exposing her creations to criticism and scrutiny. What if they didn't resonate with customers? What if her work was deemed mediocre? The very thought tightened her throat. But what lay beyond that fear? Possibly a sense of validation, an acknowledgement of her hard work, and, most importantly, the chance to contribute meaningfully to her family. Images of her mother's tired smile and the weight of her father's worries clouded her mind. In that moment of reflection, the stakes felt impossibly high. With a shaky breath, she picked up her phone again. A simple reply could shift the trajectory of her dreams. Could this be her chance to tell the world that her family's struggles didn't define her? That she had a voice worth hearing and skills worth acknowledging? She took a deep breath, allowing that tiny spark of courage to flicker within her. As she drafted her response, a wave of focus swept over her. She chose her words carefully, threading genuine excitement with a hint of doubt, the duality of emotions pouring into every sentence. She pressed send and sat back, Heart racing, a simultaneous sense of liberation and dread flowing through her, days turned into an anxious swirl as she awaited the boutique's reply. The atmosphere in her workshop felt charged, a palpable tension humming along with the nearby traffic sounds. On good days, she found comfort in creating, losing herself in the rhythm of her hands. On tougher days, the uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. She had begun to introduce more ambitious designs, a leap from her usual simpler crafts, hoping to captivate her newfound audience. Meanwhile, her new friendships with fellow young entrepreneurs deepened. They navigated this world of commerce together, sharing tips and insights. One friend suggested a small pop-up showcase amongst their circle, a beginner-friendly place to debut her crafts before the boutique officially launched them. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. As the day of the showcase approached, Emily found herself locked in a mental tug-of-war. Would this be the moment she had been waiting for, or would it become another testament to her fears? The internal conflict intensified as her gratitude for the support she received collided with her reluctance to seek it out. She couldn't shake the primal teachings of her upbringing. Vulnerability was not a strength in her family. Desperation reeked of failure. 2 nights before the event, she stayed awake, thoughts swirling in a chaotic dance. A sudden resolve bloomed within her. This wasn't just about her. It was about rewriting her narrative. If she could showcase her talents while embracing the very vulnerability she had feared, perhaps she could conquer more than just a showcase. She could redefine pride, determining that each piece she created for the pop-up would be adorned with an accompanying story about her journey. She aimed to connect more deeply with her audience. This meant deeper vulnerability but also an invitation for others to connect with her experiences. With the stars still twinkling outside, Emily knelt beside her crafting table and scribbled down ideas, letting her emotions flow freely onto the page. Each item became a statement of resilience, a whisper of her struggles, and a celebration of her triumphs. Would the showcase be the stepping stone she needed, or a daunting reminder of her fears? As she pieced together her offerings, a new thought beckoned. Could this also serve as a moment to redefine the narrative of dependence she had been rehearsing? As dawn crept into her garage, a bold question emerged: was she ready to take that final step and truly share her story? The answer loomed, a promise of deeper personal revelation hanging in the air, as the moment to reveal her newfound strength approached. The morning of the showcase dawned bright and clear, the light filtering through the windows of Emily's garage workshop. She stood before her meticulously arranged display, the culmination of her restless nights and fervent creativity. The pieces she had crafted felt alive, underpinned by the stories she had written alongside them. But with every heartbeat, a wave of anxiety rolled through her, threatening to undermine the excitement she had cultivated. Emily couldn't shake the thought that the moment was finally here, and that meant exposure and unveiling of not just her work but herself. The fear of rejection gnawed at her, loosening her carefully built facade. What if the stories failed to resonate? What if the laughter and camaraderie she had shared with her friends was merely an ephemeral veil masking the reality that awaited her? As she tightened the final knot on a display ribbon, the door swung open. Her friends drifted in, enthusiasm radiating from them. They brought energy and laughter, each one a lifeline tethering her to this moment. Still, Emily felt trapped in her mind, battling an internal monologue steeped in self-doubt. Am I deluding myself? What if I've poured my heart into a void? Hey, Em. Called Jenna, one of her closest allies in this entrepreneurial leap. You ready to show the world your genius? The fiery question ignited a flicker of resolve within her. She managed a smile, but inside, she questioned if she was indeed ready. Yeah, I just need a moment, she murmured, stepping aside, her palms clammy. Alone again, she recalled the faces of her parents, the weight of their worries still fresh. Each item she had created was a step toward healing her family's narrative, yet here came the weight of their expectations crashing down. Could she really make a difference not just for herself but for them? Taking a deep breath, she revisited the stories she had penned for each piece. It was time for those tales to breathe, time to let her vulnerabilities see the light of day. But was she prepared for the critiques that could rip into her offerings? As guests began to filter in, curiosity danced in the air. Emily glanced at their faces and felt a mix of commiseration and hope. This was her chance to show them that art could be a vessel for healing and connection. Could she authentically weave her journey into a tapestry for others to observe? When the moment arrived for her to present, she felt the pull of vulnerability mixed with the exhilarating rush of connection. Standing in front of the crowd, she noticed their eyes were transfixed not just on her crafts, but on her. It was a pivotal moment that invited both fear and promise. Taking another deep breath, she relinquished the shield she had carried for so long and began to share her tales. With each piece that she introduced, she found strength in recounting the hardships she had navigated and the resilience that birthed her creations. There was a spark of something electric in the room, a realization that shared vulnerability bred connection. She could feel the facade of doubt crumbling as her audience absorbed her story, their faces softening in recognition of familiar struggles, yet, as the conversations began to flow, like a tethered thread leading her away from her fears, another thought emerged: should she brace herself for backlash? What if her truth was met with indifference? What if the kindness she sought was shadowed by harsh realities lurking beneath the surface? As the showcase began to wind down, a sudden wave of exhilaration washed over Emily. She saw engagement, curiosity, and perhaps, a new sense of purpose igniting within her. But just as she felt the warm embrace of acceptance, a loud voice cut through her thoughts. Who do you really think you are to flaunt these creations? The question swung at her like an accusation. It was a confrontation that immediately dampened her spirit. The room tensed, an unspoken challenge filling the space, leaving Emily teetering on the precipice of her next step. Would she succumb to doubt once more, or rise to confront this new antagonist? The moment felt monumental, as if the universe had bent itself around her, and the stakes of her journey had just escalated. Silence enveloped the room, thick and suffocating. Emily's pulse quickened, the world around her pulsed in staccato rhythms matching her escalating heartbeat. The challenge crackled in the air, igniting a tempest within her. The instinct to recoil from confrontation clashed violently with the newfound strength she had begun to harvest through sharing her truth. Why not? Emily finally spluttered, her voice cutting through the tension. She hadn't intended to shout, but indignation flared in her chest at the accusation. I've worked hard on these. They reflect layers of my experience. The young man who had interrupted leaned back, a smirk curling on his lips. His demeanor shifted from inquisitive to dismissive, as if he viewed her creations merely as trifles. Emily's cheeks burned with a mix of shame and determination. More than just her artwork was under scrutiny, it felt like her very essence was being questioned, the crowd murmured, uncertainty washing over them like a wave of indecision. Here was her defining moment, a point at which she could either take a step back into her cocoon of self-doubt or surge forward, puncturing the facade of her antagonist with the clarity of her convictions. She found her voice again, resolute. I believe in what I've created. This is not just art, it's a pathway to healing, for myself and others. Each piece tells a story of resilience, anger, joy, and redemption. Isn't that worth flaunting? The confidence in her words surprised even her. In firing back, a flicker of clarity ignited in her mind. No one else had walked her journey, she was the only one who could tell these tales. The room, once hesitant, began to lean in, magnetized by her resolve. I'm not asking for permission, she continued, but rather inviting you to join me on this journey. If you don't see the value in it, that's your loss, not mine. The boldness of her reply ignited something palpable amongst her audience, a shared recognition that they too faced demons, that they sought validation in their own lives. Jenna stepped forward, her unwavering gaze locking onto the young man. You're not the only one who has battled within yourself, you know, she interjected, her voice steady yet fierce. Emily is trying to give voice to the struggles we all have. Maybe instead of attacking, you could ask what you might do with your own pain. The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement, as the energy shifted from one of division to collective understanding. As the confrontation began to dissolve into a dialogue, Emily felt the weight of anxiety begin to lift, replaced by a burgeoning sense of community, a realization that her story had indeed formed connections that transcended her initial fears. But deep within her, she knew this was merely the first of many obstacles she would face, yet doubt still gnawed at her, whispering questions. Did she have the strength to maintain this new sense of ownership? What would happen when the enthusiastic support waned? What if those very conversations she craved would sometimes turn sour again? In that moment of tenuous equilibrium, she discerned an essential truth. Walking her path would not be a linear journey of uninterrupted success or acceptance, it would be a winding road full of unexpected challenges and reaffirmations. However, for the first time, she could see herself stepping forward confidently, unafraid to be vulnerable. As applause and chatter filled the room once more, an unsettling realization tinged her excitement. She was on the cusp of discovering just how courageous she could be. But she also understood that facing her fears profoundly required continuous self-reflection. With renewed purpose swelling in her chest, she decided to talk to each guest, eager to explore their reactions and experiences. Until the voice inside her head cautioned, what if each story led her down a path of inevitable critique? The thought lingered, a dangerous shadow looming behind the promise of connection, and amidst the chaos of emotions, a thought gnawed at her. What if she were to seek a mentor, someone who had traversed these tumultuous waters? But who could that be? Each moment hung delicately in the balance, awaiting her next move as the crowd began to disperse. Would she unearth a guiding hand, or would she stumble again, ensnared by doubt? Emily's heart raced as she navigated through the crowd, her mind swirling with the night's events. The echoes of the conversation still buzzed around her, fueling both her excitement and anxiety. Each face she passed had been a witness to her confrontation, their expressions a blur of curiosity and empathy. It was invigorating, yet the uncertainty of what lay ahead felt like a weight around her shoulders. The lingering question of mentorship became more pressing. Who could she turn to? The possibilities swirled like colors on a canvas, yet none stood defined enough to seize. She thought of her college professor, the one who always saw potential when she struggled to recognize it. But how could she approach someone she hadn't spoken to in years, especially now that her craft felt so raw and exposed? With determination overriding her trepidation, Emily reached for her phone, fingers hovering over the contact list. Doubt screamed at her. She was afraid of vulnerability, of being dismissed again. But as she drew in a deep breath, she reminded herself that this journey demanded confronting those very fears. And perhaps, just perhaps, Professor Larson would understand. As she hesitated, glancing around at the fading crowd, a familiar face emerged from within the throng. It was Jenna, her unwavering friend who had stepped in during the confrontation. Striding toward her, Jenna wore a look of determination, a spark in her eyes like she had something essential to share. "Hey, Emily. You were incredible tonight," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm palpable. "I don't think I've ever seen anyone command a room like that. It was inspiring." "Thanks, Jenna," Emily replied, feeling the weight lift slightly at the acknowledgement. "But now I'm just overwhelmed. I don't feel like I can keep this up. What if the support evaporates? What if people only remember the embarrassment?" Jenna shook her head. "You can't dwell on that. This is your moment. What you achieved tonight is real. Just think about what you want to do moving forward." Moving forward. The phrase echoed in Emily's mind. She realized that she had the power to shape the narrative of her journey. The energy in the room had shifted because of her honesty. But where to go next? Emily felt the familiar tug of her internal struggle, the worry that she might falter along the way. "I've been thinking about seeking a mentor," she admitted, her voice quieter now. "I want guidance, someone who understands this path and can help me avoid pitfalls. But how do I even reach out?" "Start with Professor Larson," Jenna suggested. "You said she always believed in you. Sometimes the hardest step is the first one. Just reach out. She's likely waiting for you to connect. She might even be proud of the progress you've made." A flicker of courage ignited in Emily's chest, fed by Jenna's encouragement. She nodded, determination blossoming once more. However, the fear of rejection loomed ominously. What if this opportunity turned into another moment of doubt? Yet what if it didn't? The thought combined both exhilaration and fear, but she realized she had to take the risk. It was part of her growth. With a renewed sense of purpose, she glanced at her phone again. The contact lingered there, unchosen yet filled with potential. As Emily's fingers finally pressed the screen, she felt the weight of her doubts begin to transform. She wasn't just reaching out to a mentor, she was stepping forward into her own story. But just before she hit send, another internal voice surfaced. What if she had misjudged her professor's willingness to assist? What if the mentor she sought was simply a silhouette, flickering in her myriad fears of inadequacy? As she grappled with that uncertainty, the moment stretched into what felt like eternity. She had the choice before her, ready to leap or to retreat. Would she traverse this new threshold or let the moment slip back into uncertainty? The answer hung in the balance, a heartbeat away from shaping her next steps. Emily hesitated, finger poised above the screen, her heart pounding with uncertainty. The weight of her decision felt monumental, and a swell of doubt crashed over her. Would Professor Larson feel the same sense of urgency about her aspirations? After all this time, had the mentor-student connection eroded into nothingness, or could it be rekindled? She couldn't afford to let fear dictate her actions any longer. Taking a deep breath, she pressed send, her heart lurching at the finality of the gesture. Almost immediately, a rush of adrenaline coursed through her, a mixture of anxiety and exhilaration. She was standing at the threshold of her future, yet she couldn't shake the thoughts spiraling through her mind. What if her vulnerability didn't yield the desired effect? What if this was just another moment where she laid bare her aspirations only to face indifference? With the phone still warm in her palm, Emily turned her gaze to the park across the street, where faint laughter mingled with the sounds of nature. Lost in the scene, she reflected on the lessons the confrontation had taught her. There was a rawness in her honesty that had compelled attention, a revelation that she had strength in her voice for those moments that mattered most. But with strength came responsibility. She had to channel it wisely. What did success look like for her? Was it merely achieving recognition, or was it also about honing her craft, connecting with genuine mentors, and building a narrative that felt authentic? Emily realized she needed to confront the subtle, insidious voice whispering that she wasn't worthy. It wasn't just about being accepted, it was about trusting herself enough to deserve it. She examined that nagging thought, the feeling of inadequacy that had shadowed her for years, and wondered what would happen if she dismissed it. Embracing the conviction that she had something unique to offer, she made a silent vow to herself, she wouldn't shrink away from opportunities simply because they felt daunting. Suddenly, her phone vibrated in her hand. A message flickered to life on the screen: "So good to hear from you. Let's meet and discuss what you've been up to." Relief washed over her. Professor Larson remembered her, she hadn't been forgotten. The spark of hope ignited a self-driven yearning within Emily to articulate her current struggles and ambitions. Positively buoyed, she replied with an eagerness she hadn't felt in ages, suggesting a time to meet. This response redefined her feelings of inadequacy. The conversation could be transformative, perhaps unveiling paths she hadn't yet considered, roads lit by her mentor's insights. Yet, as she prepared for this upcoming meeting, a new trepidation bubbled to the surface. What if she was intimidated in Professor Larson's presence after all this time? She recalled the admiration she held for her professor. What if that same respect morphed into nervousness? It might be easy to fall back into old patterns of insecurity, avoiding direct conversations about her dreams and setbacks. She spent the next days carefully crafting what she wanted to say. Each word felt heavy with anticipation, a mental gymnastics routine in an attempt to articulate her growth since their last encounter. Month after month, she had evolving aspirations swirling within her, and the prospect of verbalizing them filled her with both excitement and dread. As the meeting day approached, Emily confronted her fear directly. Her heart raced as she realized this was more than just an appointment, it was a pivotal moment, a chance to open herself up to guidance and new perspectives. What would Professor Larson say when she knew about the confrontation, the struggle, and the determination that now fueled Emily's passion? Emerging from her thoughts, she steeled herself, knowing that truthfully recounting her journey would reveal the complex layers of her experience. But just before she could envision the conversation, another doubt crept in. Was she truly ready to show the vulnerability required to fully connect with her mentor? As she lifted her head and took in her surroundings, Emily understood the importance of this moment. It wasn't merely about seeking affirmation, it was about opening the door wide to her fears and stepping into the unknown, fully prepared to embrace whichever direction lay ahead. The tension lingered thick in the air, a palpable reminder that the decisive event awaited her. Would she vividly express her essence or retreat into the shadows of her self-doubt? As the sun set, casting a golden hue on the horizon, a new wave of resolve surged through Emily. She would no longer linger in the background of her own life. She had not just sent a message, she had sent a signal that she was ready for change, unearthing competence where doubt once resided. Now, all she needed to do was face the moment that would shape her path. The prospect of Professor Larson's reaction crackled under the skin of her anticipation. Taking a deep breath, she reflected once more on the mental tapestry she was weaving. The next step was imminent, the clock was ticking. One question throbbed at the forefront of her mind: would this meeting be the breakthrough she so desperately sought, or would it underscore the very fears she had battled to dismantle? Emily arrived at the café, her palms slightly damp against the smooth surface of the wooden table. The warm aroma of roasted coffee filled the air, blending with the ambience of quiet conversations and the clinking of cups. She scanned the room, searching for Professor Larson, her heart racing with a blend of excitement and anxiety. As she waited, twinges of self-doubt re-emerged, pulling at the edges of her resolve. What if Professor Larson was disappointed? What if she had changed so much that their connection felt strained? She took a deep breath, focusing on the steady rhythm of her heartbeat, willing it to remind her of the courage that had surged within her when she pressed that send button. Moments later, the door swung open, and there was Professor Larson, vibrant and poised, a reassuring smile lighting up her features. Emily's heart soared slightly. Here was the embodiment of every lesson that had once inspired her to pursue her dreams. Their eyes met, and an unspoken warmth settled in the air as the professor approached her table. "Emily," Larson greeted, her voice genuinely enthusiastic. "It's so wonderful to see you again." The two shared a hug, and Emily could feel a spark of familiarity wash over her like a comforting embrace. Soon they took their seats, and as Larson ordered a cappuccino, Emily's nervousness began to ebb away, replaced by a wave of relief. She had done it, she had put herself out there. The moment she had feared the most was unfolding, and it was less intimidating than she had imagined. After a few prompts about Emily's recent projects, the conversation naturally veered into deeper territory. Larson's expressions were engaged, her eyes attentive, as Emily recounted her recent confrontation and the breakthrough it sparked within her. Each word felt like a step along a road she was eager to explore, a revelation in her own growth. "That's a remarkable journey," Professor Larson acknowledged. "Recognizing your worth is essential, but what came next? You seem more confident, there's a light about you." Emily hesitated, grappling with the depths of her transformation. "Honestly, it's been a challenge. I'm still navigating feelings of inadequacy. Even though I've taken these steps, there's a part of me that worries I'll never be enough." Professor Larson leaned in, her voice softening. "Emily, this feeling is a common shadow that follows many ambitious individuals. But your ability to recognize it, your willingness to confront it, is what sets you apart. It's a strength, not a weakness." The professor's words resonated, igniting a flame of self-acceptance within Emily that felt tangible. She brought up her aspirations for directing and her desire to collaborate with seasoned professionals. As she spoke, her initial nervousness was replaced with a vibrant passion. "I want to tell stories that matter," she said, her voice gaining strength. "And I want to connect with mentors who evoke that aspiration in me." Professor Larson listened intently, occasionally nodding, and asking questions that dug deeper into Emily's motivations. Each inquiry pushed Emily to reflect more profoundly and articulate her dreams clearly, illuminating paths she hadn't previously considered. Yet, just as the conversation was at its peak, a voice inside Emily tugged at her. What if she dared to go even further? What if she proposed a project, a collaboration? The thought sent a jolt of energy through her, but anxiety clashed with ambition. How could she possibly approach such a figure for something so bold? As if sensing her turmoil, Professor Larsen leaned back thoughtfully, a wise smile playing at her lips. You know, Emily, great things begin at the intersection of bold ideas and rich conversations. What is holding you back from proposing a project? Is it fear of rejection, or something deeper? Caught off guard, Emily engaged in a profound internal investigation. She could articulate fears, but there was something at play that felt more adversarial. It was the shadow of self-doubt she had battled for years, a voice that insisted she wasn't ready. Or deserving. Perhaps, Emily finally admitted, it's a fear of reaching too high and falling short yet again. Or perhaps, Larsen interjected gently, it's an opportunity for growth waiting to be claimed. His words hung in the air, charging the atmosphere. For the first time, Emily felt a stirring courage igniting within her to confront that fear head-on. The urge to propose her project now pulsed at her core, demanding attention. Would she choose to surrender to fear once again, or would she seize the moment to define her trajectory? The decision loomed large as she felt the weight of the moment settle over them like a cloak. Determined, she leaned forward, searching Larsen's eyes for encouragement, and made a choice. It was time to embrace that which terrified her most, the chances that could change everything. With a deep breath, she prepared to articulate her dream, ready to step into the wild unknown of possibility. Would her mentor be the amplifier of both her aspirations and fears, or would she remain in the shadows of her doubts? Her voice steadied, and as she opened her mouth to speak, she realized this was just the beginning of a transformation, one that could alter the course of her entire narrative. Emily's heart raced as she opened her mouth, her mind whirring with thoughts. Could she really do this? The weight of her ambition felt both exhilarating and terrifying, like standing at the edge of a diving board, ready to plunge into unknown waters. Professor, I have an idea for a short film, she began, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. It explores themes of identity and belonging, focusing on a character who wrestles with the concept of self-worth amidst societal expectations. She paused, gauging Larsen's reaction, and saw the glimmer of interest in her mentor's eyes. Encouraged by the professor's engaged expression, Emily continued, I want to create something that resonates with others, something that sparks conversations about our struggles in claiming our identities. A soft smile graced Professor Larsen's face. That's a fantastic premise, Emily. It sounds like a project that truly matters. But what is your vision for the execution? The question struck deep. Emily's mind had 1,000 responses, yet articulating them felt like an impending avalanche, thrilling and daunting. I'd like to work with a team that shares this vision, experienced individuals who could help me shape it into something powerful. But go on, Larsen urged, sensing the hesitation trailing off behind her. But I'm unsure about how to approach them. I keep doubting whether I'm enough to lead such an effort. What if they see me as just another aspiring director, not deserving of their collaboration? The confession punctuated the air, an open vulnerability that bared her innermost struggles. Emily, look at how far you've come, Larsen replied, her tone both nurturing and challenging. To lead, you must first believe in your voice, even when it quakes. The best leaders aren't those free from fear, but those who act despite it. Those fears you harbor. They can fuel the authenticity of your storytelling. Emily absorbed the professor's words, feeling a flicker of warmth in her chest. The road ahead seemed assuredly bumpy, yet it was her road to forge. She weighed the need to shed old perceptions against her growing desire for authenticity. With this project, she could create a bridge to connect with others, to tell stories that mattered. Maybe what I need is a strategy, she suggested, the idea brewing. A step-by-step plan on how to reach out. The notion, timid yet energized by determination, began to reshape her mental landscape. She could see a pathway unfolding, revealing potential directions. Absolutely. Start small, Larsen encouraged. Draft a proposal first. Articulate your vision clearly. Once you have that down, approach individuals who inspire you. You'd be surprised at how many would be willing to help, especially if they believe in the message. Emily nodded slowly, feeling the grip of self-doubt loosening. A plan felt empowering, a lifeline to carry her forward. The idea of reaching out to potential collaborators no longer anchored her, it lit a fire within her. As they continued to brainstorm, Emily felt adrenaline coursing through her veins, the thrill of possibility igniting her creativity. She jotted down notes as Professor Larson outlined contacts she could tap into and resources she could leverage. An hour passed in an invigorating whirl, and yet something inside Emily stirred. Although plans were laid out, the nagging fear still loomed in the background, waiting for its moment to surface. Was this burst of ambition merely a fleeting spark? Could she maintain it amidst the inevitable challenges? As their conversation began to wind down, Emily noticed a clock ticking ominously in the corner. Time was slipping away, but something within her felt forever changed. Here, cradled in the supportive arms of her former professor, she forged a new alliance not just with Larson, but with her own evolving self. Before her departure, Larson leaned in closer, her expression shifting to one of earnest purpose. Emily, as you progress on this journey, remember to draw from your story and your struggles. They are your most powerful tools. The time has come to face those lingering doubts and present the world with your voice. Emily's resolve solidified. It was one thing to acknowledge her fears, but now she felt ready to confront them with armed conviction. She could allow her voice to take flight, mark her presence, and begin scribing a narrative of her own making. As she walked away from the cafe, notebook in hand, the swirling uncertainties became edged with clarity. She drew a deep breath, embracing the unknown ahead as a canvas awaiting her brush. And then a new thought struck her. What if her first step was bolder than she had imagined? What if she didn't have to wait for permission? The spark of audacity ignited once more. However, deep down, the undercurrent of fear sizzling beneath her newfound confidence demanded attention. Emily was left wondering, could courage truly transform her into the storyteller she aspired to be, or would fear stop her in her tracks once again? Emily stood on the brink of transformation, her heart racing as she reviewed the meticulously drafted proposal. Every carefully penned word was infused with a part of her journey, each struggle, every setback, and the delicate moments of hope intertwining seamlessly. Her intent was clear, she was ready to not just create but to resonate positively in the lives of others through her storytelling. The preliminary meeting with Professor Larson had reinforced her belief that vulnerability was not a limitation, but rather an essential component of authenticity. Emily felt each brushstroke of her experiences weaving a narrative worth sharing. She was no longer just a girl battling fear, but an emerging creator with aspirations worthy of recognition. When the day arrived to present her proposal to potential collaborators, the blend of excitement and trepidation surged through her. The small conference room was alive with ideas, energy crackling in the air, and she felt an electrifying rush as she entered. Most importantly, she was prepared to candidly convey her vision, her journey, a step that now felt natural rather than insurmountable. As she began, Emily spoke confidently about her project, her voice steady and deliberate. "This isn't just a film," she articulated passionately, "it's an opportunity to invite others into conversations about identity, struggles, and the paths we navigate to self-acceptance." She watched her audience lean in, interest glimmering in their eyes, and that spark of connection ignited a profound realization. People's responses were not just polite nods, they resonated with her message. Their questions and comments reverberated, solidifying her voice in a collective dialogue. Each word she projected drew her further from the shadows of self-doubt that had once stifled her. As Emily's proposal unfolded, the connective tissue of shared experiences formed a palpable bond with her audience. She shared her story not as an individual struggle, but as part of a larger narrative that threaded through the lives of many. The apprehension that once flickered within her simmered down to a sense of peace and affirming resolve. After the presentation, an unexpected applause erupted. The sense of validation enveloped her, and with it came a recognition of her hard work and pluck. The collaborative project opened doors to new connections, colored with the hues of shared aspirations and insights. A few key figures reached out, expressing their willingness to contribute, individuals drawn not only to her vision, but equally to her candor. Seizing the moment, she engaged in conversations that were brimming with encouragement, a supportive environment acting as fuel for her flames of creativity. She could feel, deep within, the essence of true empowerment blossoming. She was no longer merely someone searching for acknowledgement, but a creator with a burgeoning voice. Weeks passed, and the process of collaboration led to practical milestone storyboarding sessions, casting calls, and brainstorming meetings. Each new layer added a vibrant thread to the tapestry of her project, but more significantly, it strengthened her confidence. Emily realized she was not just surviving, she was thriving. The drive to establish her footing, previously overshadowed by trepidation, gradually transformed into actionable courage. One evening, amidst the exhilaration of production, she took a moment to pause, reflecting on the chaotic journey that had once consumed her. The little girl, overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility, had evolved into an empowered woman directing her own narrative. Pride cascaded through her like sunlight piercing through a storm. She was not only writing stories but living one of her own, fulfilling the promises of resilience she had made to herself. Recognition came when the project premiered to an enthusiastic audience. What had started as whispers of ideas in her garage now roared into reality. Each applause echoed affirmation, a chorus that sang the power of courage and vulnerability she had dared to embrace. It marked the pinnacle of profound personal achievement, standing before a crowd, no longer hiding behind fear but embracing the full breadth of her capabilities. Standing in the spotlight, basking in the moment, she could feel a weight lift. The applause faded, yet a lasting realization remained: she had conquered her struggles and transformed them into something beautiful. The narrative of her life was now enriched by newfound strength, a direct reflection of her commitment to rise above challenges instead of succumbing to them. As Emily stepped off the stage that night, she felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. She wasn't merely a participant in her own life, she was its architect. This acknowledgement resonated within her, intertwining with her aspirations for the future. She had built a foundation steeped in authenticity, each fear she had faced a stepping stone towards not only personal satisfaction but deep fulfillment. The journey had molded her vision, and with it came the deeper understanding that vulnerability was her greatest strength. She was prepared to embrace whatever paths lay ahead, unfazed by hurdles she would undoubtedly encounter. Emily emerged with solid confidence and established competence, knowing that this transformation was just the beginning. Now, it was time for the next chapter, the next adventure. Each line she wrote would carry the promise of inspiration. This was the moment to not only celebrate her victory but to inspire others to embark on their unique journeys. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and push this powerful message further. Comment your reactions and theories about Emily's incredible transformation. Your thoughts matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread inspiration.